Yo, the year is 2037. CrossFit Games are hitting their 30th iteration. There have been 30 different CrossFit Games. And with those 30 different CrossFit Games, there have been 18 different changes to the season. Each one of them is breaking news posted on the Morning Chalk Up's Instagram page. It's also accompanied with an email from Chris Madigan where you need to sift through everything to figure out what the hell is going on. Now, none of this was necessary. Of course, everything was thrown off of its axis when Greg Glassman in 2019 decided to change the entire format. And I suppose that this email, along with the corresponding Instagram post by the Morning Chalk Up, are steps in the right direction, but I'm a firm believer in the rip the Band-Aid off and go back to what was working. And what was working was the open mattering. Sure, CrossFit was losing its ass, but when it's losing its ass in one way, that's a very naive way to think at things. So everyone's going to say CrossFit was spending all of its money on the regionals and blah, blah, blah. You might be losing money one spot, but you're going to be gaining money in other spots. On the Savant podcast, we did a show immediately following the release of all of this information, and I said that I would give every amount of money that I own to see the financial statements in relation to the years 2018 and 2017 when compared to the years 2021 and 2022, because the biggest difference between those are the quarterfinals and the open registration numbers. In 2017 and 2018, you saw a growth each year, and I think that there were 400,000 some people signed up for the open in 2018, which was of course all messed up in relation to COVID and the tweets that were held by Greg Glassman, which were completely blown out of proportion. The way of the world kind of fucked everything up. CrossFit had to backpedal quite a bit, and open registration went down and it went down, and it brought in the quarterfinals, which is an additional revenue stream. They also made every single semifinal for the most part need to be on their own accord, so they no longer had to pay for these things. They put their stamp of approval. It's like, hey, you're a CrossFit sanctioned event. As a CrossFit sanctioned event, you can say that you use CrossFit, and that's about it, at least from what I know. CrossFit wasn't giving them any money, they weren't giving them any support, but hey, you put CrossFit on it and you're good to go. The CrossFit Dubai Challenge, which I believe is no longer the CrossFit Dubai Challenge, it's just the Dubai Fitness Challenge, and you get the idea. CrossFit didn't want to pay for the regionals, but what I think the regionals did is very much what a lot of sporting organizations events do for them. The events don't really make all that much money. They do get their money through advertising and through TV deals, and the only way you're ever going to get advertising and TV deals is if you have some sort of progression year after year after year to the point where you're so big where people are going to want to pay for those TV deals. You see that the CrossFit Games on CBS, that's really cool. What if at one point in time the regionals were on CBS and CBS was paying CrossFit to put these things on? That's something that would have only ever come to fruition if you continue to grow the sport. But like I said in the beginning of the video, the year is now 2037 and the CrossFit Games has gone through 18 different iterations, and the way that the season was going to get to the point in which you could actually watch the CrossFit Games, which at this point are on ESPN 8 The Ocho.
Here on ESPN 8 The Ocho. If it's almost a sport, we've got it here.
Because no one knows what the fuck is going on, and it's this obscure thing where people are doing random shit. But in the year 2017 and 2018, there was a lot of people who were getting on board and kind of understanding where everything was going. It's like, okay, you do the open. If you're really good in the open, say like the top 20 in your region, then you go on to the regionals. The regionals, the top 5 in whatever region, they're all the exact same thing. The floor layouts are the same. They're in these locations. They stay in the same spots for the most part. They do move around, but once you finish from the regionals, you go to the CrossFit Games, and that was really easy. I always thought it back into the high school format. When I was a wrestler, you went to the regionals, you went to the sectionals, and then you went to state. Everybody went to regionals, and the correlate to CrossFit is that everybody could compete in the open. If you were good enough in the regionals, then you went on to sectionals, which is the harder competition. The sectionals for wrestlers is the equivalent of the regionals for CrossFitters. If you finish in the top of the bracket there, then you went to state, which was the big show. The CrossFit Games are the big show. Everybody wants to say, oh, I was a games competitor. It's like, well, I was a state qualified wrestler in high school. That's how I finished up my high school career as a wrestler. Ended up being a really shitty college wrestler, but whatever. The point is, if I, as a 31-year-old now, went back to watch some high school wrestling, they would say, I am a state qualifying wrestler. And then I would say, oh, how'd you do in regionals? How'd you do in sectionals? And they would tell me how they did in those stages of the competition. And I would know what it took to get there. It's like, oh, everybody competes in the regionals. It's like, how'd you do in the regionals? It's like, I got 9th. It's like, well, that's not that good. It's like, that's pretty shitty, actually. You lost both of your first 2 matches. And then someone says they go to sectionals, and I go, oh shit, you were a regional qualifier. That's pretty freaking good. Anyone who said that they qualified for regionals, it's like, okay, you know what the fuck you're doing. It's like, oh, I finished in the top 10 of the regionals. Like, holy shit, you were basically a games qualifier. Once, of course, you qualify for the CrossFit Games, most people have an idea of who you are. Let's say in 2037 now, 15 years into the future, and I'm 10 years removed from CrossFit, and I'm talking to somebody who does CrossFit, and I'm as deep into the fucking CrossFit world as you can be right now. Well, there might be 20 to 30 people in the CrossFit community who are deeper into CrossFit right now than I am. From a mental perspective, I eat, sleep, and breathe CrossFit. But let's just say I do this for 5 more years. The year is 2027, and I take 10 years off. I'm going to be speaking to somebody who just started doing CrossFit, and they're going to say, I am a super semifinal regionalist. And I'm going to go, what the fuck does that mean? Super semifinal regionalist? It's like, yeah, there was this one stage of the competition where we had to go to Transylvania. We fought a couple of vampires, and I only got bitten by 3 vampires. And because I got bitten by 3 vampires, it qualified me for the next stage of the competition, which brought me to Atlantis. And when I was in Atlantis, I finished in the top 4, which qualified me for regionals. And I'm like, okay, I know regionals. It's like, yeah, but regionals is only the 5th stage of the competition. I'm like, holy shit, we're only at the 5th stage. How many stages are there? Like, oh, there's 26 stages. They have a competition every 2 weeks over the course of the year, and then eventually you get to the CrossFit Games. I'm like, how many people make it to the CrossFit Games? And they say 364 males and 362 females. Like, why are there more males than females? Well, there's these 2 categories in the male division that they wanted there because there were some females who thought they can compete with the males, and they wanted to make sure they had spots available for those 2 people every year who thought they could do that. They always take last place, but they wanted to be super inclusive. And I'm like, holy shit, I don't want to hear any more of this. And then I turned the TV off. And that's what I hear. And I guess the basis of everything that I'm saying right here is that you want some sort of structure. You want it to be linear. And why not go to the exact thing that it appears that they're inching towards, which is their regional format? The East and the West and the freaking North American continent. You understand they're only having 2 of those things, which I suppose really could be cool, because I remember there was a bit of me that didn't think that it was a good idea when they were getting rid of the North Central Regional. They combined that with the Central Regional, which is right where I'm at, and then they just made it the Central Regional. So the Central East and then the North Central combined into the Central. I basically thought that it was a bad idea because I wanted to make regionals. It was my goal. I'm like, I want to go do that thing. And then when they took away the spots, I was like, fuck, I have to get that much better to get there now. What happened is I got better. I qualified eventually. Took me an additional couple of years to do it. But the other thing that happened, and it's something that I didn't see at that point in time, is that it put a whole bunch of high-level competitors against one another. So the Central Regional was very cool to watch. You had Matt Frazier and Scott Panchik, who were from the Central East, competing against like Jacob Heppner, Street Horners, Sam Dancer. All of those names are now in the Central Regional. And I'm like, okay, I get it. This is something that maybe you could package to a CBS Sports. But the only way you're ever going to be able to do that is if when you turn on the Super Bowl, or if you turn on the NFL playoffs or the freaking World Series, you're like, how did these teams get here? Okay, I see how this worked. They went through these steps, these hurdles. They're this good. They do this stuff. And I'll be damned, there cannot be a breaking news article released on an Instagram site every 2 years, like Lazar Dukic said in the freaking thing. It's like, this happens every 2 years.
Match at half the semifinals. Oh, it's a pleasure.
Hey.
Brian just talked to himself. Oh,
Bye.
Lazar's listening in. It's great.
Lazar's listening.
And he's not fucking wrong. But if it happens every 2 years, you're going to have the situation that I just made up and freaking said on the fly right there. Where we had to go to Transylvania. We fought a couple of vampires, and I only got bitten by 3 vampires. And go qualify in Transylvania with some made-up place because this is where CrossFitters work out.
If it's almost a sport, we've got it here.
They fight vampires. Like, okay, now they seem like they're fucking crazy.
I'm not crazy!
So my point in saying all of this is if I had any sort of play or power or pull in CrossFit, I would want to look at the numbers and I would say, how much more money are we making on the quarterfinals? Are they really worth it? Have they spoken to all the affiliates? Do their affiliates enjoy it? Do they think that they can put the teams through the team quarterfinals? You know, we're not talking about the teams that are going to the games that everybody sees. We're talking about like the Fronings and the freaking potential Noah Olson, Chandler Smith team in the coming seasons. You heard him say he might be doing that on his YouTube channel, right?
I fully intend on competing in the team division of the CrossFit Games from the 2024 season on for who knows however many years, but my good friend Chandler Smith and I have talked about doing that for a long time, and hopefully we put together a team that is able to win the CrossFit Games multiple years in a row.
Talking about the team that finished in like the 20 to 25% range that now is like a fireman and a police officer and a nurse, and they're all on the same team, and they need to do the competition on a Wednesday, a Thursday, and a Friday, and then not only do they have to coordinate their work schedules, but they've got to coordinate with the hours of the gym so that they can lay the floors out for everybody, and there are all of these hurdles, and it's so fucking confusing.
Cool, so we've gotten to my favorite video here. This is Stephen Reyes, 64th in the world on this workout, but we see a woman doing thrusters. But in the background, you see Stephen Reyes doing wall balls. Okay, there he is. He's doing the workout. The guy's trying to move the camera so they can see him, but it's too late. You already can't see a bunch of the depth of his squats on the wall balls. You can't see him hitting the top of the target. You see him come on over, so he's doing his shuttle runs. Okay, 64th in the world. Let's see how he does on his shuttle runs. Looks pretty good. Stephen Reyes should have taken into account that he would be putting up a good score and he should be putting a lot of effort into the quality. He did half of his shuttle runs. He only did freaking 2 down and backs, which is 2 reps. He had to do 4 reps. It becomes an issue when you have to get the workouts in a tight time, because you're probably going to have to be doing the workouts during your freaking local affiliates class times. There's issues up, down, and everywhere, and it's hard to get this workout in, I understand. But when you have this score and you're doing a competition, you need to be able to provide the proper footage when you put up a score that good. Now, also, he didn't, because he did half of the shuttle run, so that entire video is invalid.
Freaking 2012 through 2018, you finish in a certain spot in the open, you send in your freaking videos, and then you go to the freaking regionals. The firefighter, the nurse, and the police officer take that weekend off with their paid vacation time or whatever they've got, and the whole world knows exactly how they got there. And if CrossFit were smart, they would also throw like an American Ninja Warrior sort of skit about it. It's like, there's a firefighter, a police officer, and a nurse right here doing the competition. It's like, can you believe that they made it? Let's see where they finish up. And then you follow the police officer, the firefighter, and the nurse throughout their stages of competition. What you've got instead is a whole bunch of frustrated people trying to figure things out and not be able to make it because they can't make it happen logistically. And what's going to happen is they're going to change it next year to be including more people and more time so they can make more money, and it just doesn't work. Go back to what works unless you have a damn good reason to be doing otherwise. But from what I read in that email, they're changing a little bit, but they don't want to rip the Band-Aid off. What do you think? And Riller, out.